ButtKicker. Feel what you've been missing. Get yours today at thebuttkicker.com and be sure to use our 20% discount promo code ISCA20.
Hello and welcome to the iRacing Stock Car Association ButtKicker Super Cup Series, and we have an excellent race for you all tonight here. The Advanced Auto Parts 115 at the Circuit of the Americas. It's going to be quite a difficult race here tonight for a lot of these guys out here. A lot of twisty bits on this racetrack, and a lot of people, two sides of kind of a coin on what people think about this racetrack when it comes to whether these NASCAR cars should even be on this racetrack. But I think a lot of these guys are going to be showing up here, especially the road course ringers. If you're really talented at road courses, this could be great for the point situation for a lot of these guys. But I am joined in the booth by Josh Ward, and we appreciate you hopping up in here tonight. And definitely wish a happy birthday to Nolan Ramport out there. How you doing, Josh?
I'm all right. How about you, Brian?
Doing fine. Definitely excited to see what we all have in store for all the audience out there tonight, as we're watching a lot of guys already into qualifying.
A 2:14.9 strong showing by Josh Schaffner here at the beginning. What are our points looking like, Brian?
I am glad you asked. Right now, in the Super Cup Series, which is they are now 5 races deep in, Josh Schaffner is actually the points leader. He has, I do believe, 225 championship points, while Mark Paget has 208. Chris D. Johnson has about, I do believe, I don't know, it looks like he has one of the wins, so that puts him in the playoffs, of course. But he is not one of the higher points guys. Greg Wachinski actually has a 208, or 206, so he's not far back from Mark Paget. Corey Cook is in 5th position in the points right now with 155. Clayton Hoffman, you see how quick he is right now. In practice, he was the fastest, and he has 121 points. But we also got to talk about the recently started Cup Series. You got the ButtKicker Cup Series and the Super Cup Series. The Cup Series just recently started with a race last week at Atlanta. And last week's race, of course, was very interesting to watch. Josh Schaffner is in the points lead. So he's in the points lead for both the Super and the Cup Series. And Matt DeCiani right now looking very quick there on the racetrack here at COTA. He is in 2nd place. Wayne Grossi in 3rd. Kenny Powell in 4th. Al Kozlowski in 5th. That is the top 5 in points here. Let's look a little bit about our race facts for tonight. Tonight we will be having the, of course, shout out to our sponsors, Advanced Auto Parts, for the 150-mile race we're going to see here tonight at Circuit of the Americas. Going to have 34 laps on the night, 3 stages. Stage breaks are going to be 9, 17, and, of course, ending the race at 34. Also got to keep in mind tonight, caution laps are not going to count. So those caution laps that these guys get in these stages are not going to really deduct from the total laps they're going to have to run here tonight. 5 sets of tires in the pits. Also, the fuel window, because these guys have 75% fuel, is going to be 14 laps. So doing math here in my head, quick math, I think these guys might end up having to do a green flag pit stop at the end of this race, but it's going to be close.
It's going to be about a 17-lap stint at the end, but these guys should be used to that. Normally inside of the official races hosted by iRacing, it is about the same, if you look at it percentage-wise, length run after that first stop. So most people are kind of used to running an entire race, 30-some laps, on one tank of gas. On one set of tires, which is impressive in my view. You're going around this road course, you're scrubbing your tires, you're having to drive it off really hard. It's not really easy on your tires. So the fact that some of these guys are probably going to be down in the 70% tread range by the end of the race, it could get interesting if the car isn't handling quite right.
You're right. It could very well be worth it to really not take tires in that final. If you do have to do a green flag pit stop, it could be worth it, but it could also be tricky. Like you said, those tires, when they get bald at a track like this, you're going to notice a lot of handling conditions. And one thing about this track, I think turn 1 is probably the hardest corner you got. That's like one of the only passing zones, too, in a lot of ways, considering, a lot of guys are going to be throwing it into that corner, and it's more of a low-speed corner. But I tell you what, though, I saw something really interesting last night at the Juggernaut Truck Series, which I broadcast with PMN, and I saw a lot of guys on the starts making moves on that top lane and was just able to throw it in and really get the momentum, really arc that corner out, while the guy on the bottom really not able to get a lot of momentum off. But I think this is going to be quite the race here. We saw Clayton Hoffman was fastest in practice. Looks like he's not qualifying. 22 seconds remain on the board. And right now, Josh Schaffner at the top of that board.
Yeah, like you were saying, getting the runoff at the top. There's 2 key hairpins. Well, 3 key hairpins. You've got turn 1. It's coming into a carousel and into the S's. You've got then the last turn of the course, turn 20 turn course. Comes up to the back straightaway, but it's kind of a 90-degree bend. But then you've got turn, I believe it is 11, coming onto the back straightaway. That
For
turn
sure.
I've seen a lot of people take a little bit differently than they would the other hairpins.
Well, I hate to interrupt you, Josh. We got to do our Star Spangled Banner right here. I do apologize, Josh. Want to make sure we're right on time here, but yeah, that definitely some tricky spots there. I hate to interrupt you, but let's get to the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Driver, start your engine!
And we are back. And if you're just joining us with the ISCA Stock Car Association here, we are so excited to see some great racing tonight here at COTA, Circuit of the Americas in Texas. And you know you don't mess with Texas, but we got our grid set, and soon to be these guys are going to start moving here any moment now. But our field going to be starting here with Josh Schaffner on the pole. Really quick time from him. Matt DeCiani going to be starting outside pole. Mark Pageant in 3rd place. Corey Cook going to be starting here in 4th. 5th place, Wayne Grossi. 6th place, Robert Pattengale. 7th place, Mark Sanchez.
8th place, Randy Drumhiller. 9th place, Greg Wachinski. And 10th place, beginning our non-qualifiers, Clayton Hoffman. 11th, Kenny Powell. 12th, Matthew McMeekin. 13th, Al Kozlowski. And 14th, Paul Olson.
Hopefully don't get any angry emails about that one. But I don't know. I mean, I think historically in ISCA that we have kind of butchered his name quite a bit. But I'm so excited to see what these guys have in store for us. Of course, we're going to have a pretty long pace lap to get us started. I was talking to these guys before the broadcast and mentioned that, you know what, they should do standing starts. You know what, even maybe make it Le Mans style to where they got to run to their cars.
I mean, it's kind of applicable. It's a F1 circuit, right? So FIA has their own set of rules, and that's part of why the circuit looks the way that it does. They've got certain rules whenever it comes to runoff areas and hairpins and number of passing zones available. Of course, our passing zones are a lot fewer and far between than what a F1 car would really be able to with these 3,500 bricks that we got running through the air. But it should be a good race. Maybe see a little bit more rubbing than we would if we were made out of carbon fiber.
Yeah, these chassis are pretty tough with these next gen cars, so I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these cars look a little bit worse for wear as we go on. And I'll tell you what, man, I don't envy any of these guys being out here. I mean, I love to watch races here at this racetrack, but I definitely wouldn't even want to be out there pacing right now because I mean it's still quite the tricky thing to do. As we see, Josh Schaffner following that Porsche, and I think that Porsche might even be faster than all these cars out here going around this track.
You can see them. Some of them hate to even take it too wide under pacing because of how hard it is to get around here at 50-some mile an hour. So I don't envy them having to do that at 120 coming up soon.
And one of the hardest spots, I mean, I was the S's that these guys are going to end up having to go through is almost reminiscent of turn 1 and 2 at Darlington. You don't want to go through there side by side, but a lot of guys, they definitely have the gumption to try it. But I think while we're waiting for the green flag to come out and these guys to finish this circuit here, why don't we take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
Get the part you need from the comfort of your garage. Order online or via our mobile app with advanced same day. Get same day pickup, same day curbside, or same day delivery. Advance your auto. Advance Auto Parts.
That commercial here is the green flag soon to come out. You see that start-finish line a little bit higher up there on that banner there, so should see Josh Schaffner powering through the gears here. One thing about this track, do you expect to see a lot of wheel spin on the starts, Josh?
The weird aspect of iRacing right now, whenever it comes to these tires, is they don't really get too hot at the rear. A lot of the guys are probably running a little bit softer on their rear end. I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen the setups. I haven't been in the garage, but I know that a lot of
big stack up back here as Paul Olson, Al Kozlowski, Mark Sanchez all stacking up back here. I don't think any contact was had, but almost.
Taking turns, getting through that turn 1. That's such a sharp and tight turn. Some of these guys at the back may not really be comfortable having to work their way through traffic going through that area. Maybe they'll expect a few of them maybe lose it going into the S's early in the run before everybody gets kind of used to the car and how the track really feels right now. So
you definitely got to warm your tires up, get them up to temperature here. As we saw a huge start from Corey Cook. He surges up to second place. You see Robert Pattengale losing the spot to Clayton Hoffman. Clayton Hoffman did not qualify, but he was the fastest in practice. I expect to see him really scream through this field. But one thing about it, even if you are quicker, it really, a lot of cases it's so hard to pass here that it kind of takes away that speed. You have to be careful not to get into that guy in front of you, considering all the different braking zones these guys have.
Oh, you run a risk too if you're not pushing your car.
Greg Wyszynski off the racetrack. He hits the guardrail. He is upside down. No, man, that was a big hit for Greg Wyszynski. And you see right there, it looks like Al Kozlowski. I do believe that is who that is. We don't know. Who is that there? I'm trying to see. I couldn't really see who that was that got into the back of him.
I'm just impressed by Greg Wyszynski's ability to do a barrel roll and land back on all fours.
I believe it was Matthew McMeekin that got into the back of him. Now that I see that car, the side of it was kind of scrubbed up, so it was hard to tell which car that was.
I guess you could say that these next-gen cars got pushed to pass. Just give them a rear end, bump on the rear end, and go right around, right?
Corey Cook has a problem. He spins around, too. He is going to fall back all the way back to the 13th position. So already we're seeing a tremendous amount of mistakes. Oh, and Cook spins it again. He's sideways again. And he just was in second place.
It's one of those situations of consistency is key. You may not be the fastest person on the track, but if you can avoid spinning out and going off track, you might be able to gain quite a few positions.
Yeah, I think this is one of those tracks where you just want to hit your marks, maybe not try to be the fastest guy. If you just not, don't make a mistake, you could find yourself with a ton of positions. We saw Matt DeCiani just now get by, I do believe that was Mark Padgett. Mark Padgett seemed like he was just willing to let him go as DeCiani really starting to try to catch up here to Josh Schaffner. You see Clayton Hoffman, we talked about him probably going to have trouble trying to pass. Well, he has done a good job. He's up to fourth right now. Oh, problems.
Good avoidance by Clayton Hoffman.
Mark Padgett getting turned right there. Ooh. And Robert Pattengale going to get by. Telling you, I mean, this is one of those tracks you really got to treat that gas pedal like it's got You know, we usually say an egg underneath it. I think they got a whole box of eggs underneath that gas pedal.
Put a whole carton up in her.
I mean, just consistency is just so key here. You could turn hot laps all you want, but you're really going to be burning up those tires. And once you get the temperature in them, it's so hard to get it going, off.
It's hard to even get the tires up to temperature. I've seen situations where people run 10 laps and barely have a 200-degree or tire. Of course, these road course tires engage a little bit lower temperature, and they're really at peak operating conditions a little bit lower. But even then, the tires aren't really too prone to heating up, even under intense inputs. But it's not even just on throttle. These guys are running brakes. Their brake bias set anywhere between 56 and probably 49. But if you set it up for turn one, right, you're on the brakes for quite a bit longer time, and you're wanting to get most of your braking done before you turn in. If you've got them set a little bit too low, if you come into one of these sharper braking zones, like going into the S's, there's a good little braking zone there once you come out in between two of them, you might end up turning yourself even on brakes. I've seen cars spin out coming off the brakes and not even getting onto the gas yet. So the car control is on all inputs at this track, really.
I'll tell you one, the person really to watch has got to be that one car, Matt DeCiani. He is just screaming towards Josh Schaffner right now 3/10 behind him. But it's so difficult to pass. I mean, you see them going through the S's section right here, and these S's look like they're so much fun to drive through. But I'll tell you what, I bet that's deceiving, especially when you're side by side here. But Josh Schaffner, he's gonna, if he just holds the defensive line, you don't necessarily even have to be faster than the guy, behind you. As long as you hold a defensive enough line, maybe take a, one part to the corner, he's going to have the advantage. But when the other part, if you hold that defensive line, you're going to be able to get the run off the corner. He's not going to be able to get it.
Oh, at a certain point, it's not even about holding the defensive line. It's about holding a line and not going off the track. There's so few opportunities to get on the inside of somebody without getting on the brakes really hard. And I don't know if some of these guys want to risk potentially spinning out due to low brake bias or locking them up from getting on too hard by driving it in deep on the inside of somebody, especially in these hairpins.
Yeah, I feel like this top three is about to be a huge battle here as we see Clayton Hoffman even starting to catch up here to Matt DeCiani. This is going to be where the Titans clash right here, as Clayton Hoffman showing a tremendous amount of speed. He's trying to get that win locked down. I mean, just like Josh Schottner, I mean, he is the points leader for both the Super Cup and the Cup Series, wanting to keep this run going on. But you could tell that Schottner not having the best handling car right now.
We're watching and broadcasting NASCAR races or NASCAR stock car races. We're kind of used to running side by side and seeing side by side fighting, but at a road course, that's not always the case. You'll see them side by side entering, but you'll a lot of times see the guy on the outside, especially, kind of driving in a little bit deeper, brake and turn in, and then try to get that bottom run off to get on the inside of them, kind of setting up the pass. And in the middle of the turn, they're single file, but once they come out, they've kind of set up the turn to where they're going to come back out, maybe even swapped in position. So it's going to be really interesting seeing how these guys get it on and how it's going to go about, especially once they get to fighting back and forth.
And the fighting back and forth is going to definitely happen as we see Hoffman really just putting a lot of pressure on Matt DeCiani. And sometimes, in order to pass someone, you don't even really try to pass them. You just kind of put pressure on them. Make sure they're in that rearview mirror. The more the more they look in that rearview mirror and see you, the more likely they're to make a mistake. I mean, considering how much focus it takes to get around this racetrack.
Oh, it's a mentality thing. It's almost like the joke of press X to intimidate, like your Dale Earnhardt. Clayton Hoffman's behind Matt DeCiani here, and Matt DeCiani might be sitting here thinking, oh, Lord, Clayton's going to get me. And that may motivate him to get side by side with Josh Schaffner, and then Clayton gets to sit back, watch them two fight, and then take advantage afterwards, right? So it's really just kind of get them to mess up, get in their head a little bit, maybe make them do something that they don't want to do, and then take advantage afterwards.
Yeah, definitely is the thing to do. I mean, you definitely just want to get in their head. And another thing, too, even if DeCiani takes the lead from Josh Schaffner, one thing about it that I've noticed time and time again with these road courses is You really want, once you get out in front of someone, you don't have that other car to judge yourself on. So you could slow down yourself, not knowing exactly, how to run the track when you got open space in front of you. You use that other guy. You can kind of identify his weaknesses and do it better than him. But once you're in front of him, he could do the same thing to you.
Oh, there's a number of really talented, even on the oval side, where they'll sit there and ask for someone to get in front of them. That way they have something to focus on, and that's an oval, right? And once you add the left-right hairpin carousel and all the technical aspects of a F1 Grand Prix circuit, you kind of really desire that, especially if you're kind of used to maybe using a driving line or having a little bit of guidance. It's kind of valuable to be able to sit back there and watch.
And I'll tell you what, been very impressed. We saw Mark Pageant earlier have a big spin, and now is back up to 4th place, even though he does have quite a bit of a gap to go to get up to this top 3. I do believe about 12 seconds back from Clayton Hoffman. We see Wayne Grossi right there kind of waiting in the wings to try to make something happen. Grossi, I don't think he's very known for having, a lot of road course acumen, but he's doing very good out here. A lot of variations in times from a lot of these guys, and I think with this track, you really have to have seat time. This is not a track where, you see time and time again where, I just bought the track, or I just this is my first couple laps. This is one where you can't do that. You have to show up, and you got to put in time. And I think that's what we see from guys like Josh Schaffner, Matt DeCiani, and Clayton Hoffman.
Oh, at a road course, every turn sets up the next turn. So if you're not prepared coming, like the carousel is a great example. This big turn straight in front of us, I believe, is on the broadcast now, coming into the hairpin. If you don't quite take that long sweeping turn out and then get ready for that long bend left, or maybe you take the long sweeping turn a little bit too wide, you're not going to be able to have the arc into that sharp tight turn coming right off of it. So if you don't know the course, you'll overshoot. You'll end up braking. And these yellow turtles you'll see in some of the turns that are kind of meant to dissuade people from cutting the track and using that area for extra turn.
Oh, man. Matt DeCiani taking the lead. I thought Josh Schaffner was about to he looked like he was getting real loose off that corner there. That is the change for the lead. Now Schaffner back to 2nd, and now in the hands of Clayton Hoffman. I think tires are going to be so important here. I think that's what we're seeing maybe from Schaffner. I mean, definitely going to be happy that they have stage brakes. A lot of guys are going to be happy that we are having stage brakes, which is going to come up on lap 9. I mean, it just, these stages are almost like your experimental phase. If you didn't get enough practice, you're going to get some practice in these stages. That's for sure.
Oh, I don't know how little practice you can do, but most of these guys I would expect to have run at least 20 laps to really be able to memorize the track, because it's very technical, and knowing like the setups, like I was talking about, it takes a good little bit of memory, or at least, and if you can memorize the track in one go, good on you.
Robert Pattengale losing it. Robert Pattengale goes sideways there. That's going to give an opportunity here to Randy Drumhiller, and that is for the 6th spot here. Good save for Pattengale. He could have, definitely not a known road course racer, but he's doing very well here tonight. And I think Pattengale's been doing really well the last few weeks. I got to give him a credit. A lot of these guys, I think Wayne Grossi also included, these next-gen cars, a lot of people come in here, they're like a little bit more unknown, like, I don't know the full grasp of the car, but a lot of these guys prefer this car over the Gen 6.
Oh, yeah, these road courses, I don't doubt it. Old Gen 6 cars, the right side of them would be flared out just a little bit because that would increase side force in a left turn. They did away with that for this next gen car. So we got a symmetrical car that's kind of built to be a road car in a way, right? It's meant to perform better at road courses because you don't have the asymmetric aerodynamic effects. But I think here, if anybody's probably thankful that they're in the if anybody's ever been thankful that they're in the next gen, it's probably at a road course.
For sure, and we do see some battling going on back here further in the pack. We see Kenny Powell, he's right now in 8th place. Matthew McMeekin under fire right now as Corey Cook going to make the pass on him, and now Mark Sanchez going to try to make a pass also. And that is for the 9th, 10th, and 11th positions. And we saw Corey Cook. I mean, I know that Corey Cook has a lot of speed at this racetrack. I just think that, we saw him get up to second and made a mistake, fell all the way back here to ninth now, but he is starting to work his way back forward. And, you make a mistake like that in one of these stages, it doesn't necessarily spell the end of your race, considering, you got all, you're going to get set back up with everybody. But one thing that a guy, someone was talking to me about before the broadcast began was, how if you do fall off a lot, in these stages, and when the stage yellow does come out, are you going to be able to get back caught up in time to get on pit road? That's one thing. The thing about these road courses, you almost got to be turning race laps in order to catch back up to the field.
That's very interesting. Oh, and we got somebody going around. Who is that?
Looks like Kenny Powell.
That's going to make it a little bit easier for Corey Cook to work his way through the field. I'm wondering if Robert Pattengale, Randy Drumheller, I think those are the two cars in front of him now, are going to kind of let him go. I don't know if I'd be willing to fight it, depending on how well I know track.
And soon the race for the lead is going to be heating up here. Someone else off the racetrack there. That's Corey Cook going real wide. He's able to keep that car under control, though, and keep that 8th position. But little mistakes like that, they add up when it comes to that time. I mean, road courses, that caution only for the stage break is when the cautions come out. And you'll look at that. It was such a great shot there. Corey Cook, you can see from the side just how hot those brakes are getting. See the red glint off of those calipers.
Like you were saying, going off track, little mistakes like that can cost you. But in some cases, it can benefit you. And part of what iRacing does is if it's gained you extra time, it'll make you give that back up. And even if you've made a little mistake and it's not that bad to your position, if it weren't to penalize you, the penalty will make sure it makes you give up everything you just gained.
Well, Matt DeCiani right now under fire, racing for the lead here. Clayton Hoffman has caught him, and they also are catching up to some lap traffic. I do believe that's Greg Wachinski.
I believe
he's already
earlier
4 laps down.
We saw a situation like we were talking about. Josh Schaffner was in the lead. Matt DeCiani kind of took the lead from him. Clayton Hoffman was still in third, but it was almost within 1 or 2 laps that Clayton Hoffman took the second place position from Josh Schaffner. It was one of those things when Clayton Hoffman just sat behind Josh Schaffner and Matt DeCiani and let them fight it out, just for him to pounce whenever Josh Schaffner made another mistake. And you can see here, maybe Matt used up a little bit of his tire to take over the lead from Josh Schaffner, and now Clayton's going to get a free pass. Again, it could be just that strength that Clayton showed in practice coming out, and he was struggling a little bit at the beginning, but it looks like it's getting better. That downhill section is a really interesting part because you're so with the downhill section, you'll get loose very, very often if you give it even too much throttle. Some people maybe take a higher gear there, avoid the wheel spin, but then they'll have to downshift back into the S's. But it's always interesting seeing them come out of the turn 1 into that downhill section to see how much speed they can really power out. There's a lot of time to be gained if you have the ability to do it.
100%. Well, one thing about it that I noticed, with road courses, like you can be better at certain sections than the other. I mean, you see DeCiani right now able to pull away from Clayton Hoffman, but in those portions you were just talking about, that's where Clayton was able to get up on his rear end. It looks like maybe in the lower speed corners we're seeing Clayton driving a little bit deeper, but he is able to hold that speed on exit. And man, just what a race we got going on between these two leaders. And I think that this is going to be, these two are probably going to be the ones racing throughout this whole race, even in both stages here, going to be trying to fight for the stage win. DeCiani, using that, how hard it is to pass, can he keep Clayton Hoffman behind him? It's possible, and we only just have a handful of laps left in this stage, as I do believe the white flag will be coming out this time by. And how could Greg Wachinski play into this? I mean, he's got to start to catch up to him. Is he going to get out of the way, or are they going to try to have to race around him, which could add another layer to how difficult this race for the lead could be?
That's the interesting part of whenever you get encounter lap traffic at a road course, especially with it being so tight here. Even if they let you go, it's not particularly easy to get around them. It's not just like a freebie. They can be in a very finicky line that you have to kind of good chicane inside of a short straightaway in order to get around them. Even if you want to take the corner before in your normal position, you may have to do a chicane in the middle of the straightaway. So I believe they did just get around him, right?
No, he's still there right in front of him. Yeah, and another thing, too, because, not to say Greg Wachinski's slow or anything, but compared to these guys, I mean, these guys are running second faster. So, when it comes to judging maybe his momentum versus theirs, that can be quite difficult, especially when it comes to braking when you're right behind him.
It's all about where you catch him at. If you can catch him in one of the long straightaways, it's fairly easy because he'll probably be courteous enough to just blip the throttle a little bit, get him on by, because that'll even save him a little bit of time. I mean, he may be a little bit self-oriented and not want to give up that lap. That way he can be on the lead lap, or at least keep one of his laps.
No problems, Paul. Paul Olson goes around right in front of our leaders. Greg Wachinski involved.
That was close.
Man, that could have been terrible for these leaders. They, coming up through there, and man, let's take a look back at this. You see Paul Olson. He's definitely been running really slow. I think Wachinski was faster than him and probably just came up on him. Didn't realize what he. Oh yeah, just came up with Greg Wachinski. Just no time really to react there. And luckily, those two leaders were able to get by. Man, that was scary.
That's another thing about these road courses. Usually, oval is self-cleaning. The banking will let the slow cars roll down to the bottom, or even if you're in the wall, it'll kind of stick you up there, and you don't really encounter too many people right there in the middle of the track. But at these road courses, like you saw, one car was in the middle of the track and the other one was off on the apron. Coming around these blind turns, you don't really know where they're at. And I believe we're coming into the final turn of the circuit.
Clayton Hoffman, he's having some problems here. Is Josh Schaffner now racing with him? Looks like Hoffman lost a ton of time just now. And it looks like Schaffner might even get to second place from him. Man, I wonder what happened there with Clayton. I don't see any damage on that machine, but could have just been one of those issues where, just got on the gas a little bit too much on exit or something like that. But here comes Matt DiCiani crossing the start-finish line here. This should conclude the stage. I do believe we have to wait for the top 10 drivers to drive across the start-finish line, though. But Matt DiCiani right now going to be your Stage 1 winner. See Josh Schaffner able to get second here. Clayton Hoffman, I do believe, finishing third.
This is, I guess, kind of valuable for the Matt, Josh, and Clayton. They'll have to wait an additional 26 seconds, or Matt will, for Mark to, I mean, even if you go down to Kenny Powell, who would be 10th, there's a minute and one back. That'll give them enough time to kind of compress for whenever the pace car comes out, kind of resolving some of the issues you were talking about where somebody might not be able to make it a pit road in order to pit, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we see Randy Drumhiller now crossing the start-finish line, and so only Corey Cook, Matthew McMeekin, and Kenny Powell are left to cross, and I think that's when the caution flag will fly. But top 10 positions are going to be valuable stage points, so these guys definitely going to be happy to grab them as best as they can, and hopefully regroup, regain, get out there and try again for the second stage, which will end on lap 17. Caution is flying, so the stage standings are official here. Matt DiCiani going to wrap up the stage win here. Second place, Josh Schaffner. Third place, Clayton Hoffman. Fourth place, Mark Paget. Fifth place, Wayne Grossi. Sixth place, Robert Pattengale. Seventh place, Randy Drumhiller. Eighth place, Corey Cook. Ninth place, Matthew McMeekin. And 10th place, Kenny Powell. Those are those point-paying positions, and we will allow these guys to get their chance to go down pit road, and we'll talk to our stage winner, hopefully, and we'll take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
ButtKicker. Feel what you've been missing. Get yours today at thebuttkicker.com And be sure to use our 20% discount promo code ISCA20.
Get the part you need from the comfort of your garage. Order online or via our mobile app with advanced same day. Get same day pickup, same day curbside, or same day delivery. Advance your auto. Advance Auto Parts.
Welcome back. Definitely been an exciting race here at Circuit of the Americas. Definitely a big shout out to Advance Auto Parts for coming on board for tonight's race, and 115-mile event here tonight, 34 laps, and so far been pretty good. We've seen some mistakes coming from a lot of drivers out there, but no mistakes I don't think we've seen from Matt DeCiani. He has been looking very strong here. Maybe not the fastest guy on the track, but he's been consistent, and consistency is so key when it comes to a track like this, Josh.
Oh yeah, consistency is probably worth more than speed. If I'm being honest, anybody can run a lap and be fast enough, but doing it even a moderate pace for 10 straight laps is impressive.
It very much is, and curious to see. I mean, when these guys get these new tires on these cars, though, that's going to be the challenge too. I mean, you get used to how those tires were wearing. You think you get used to those old tires. Do you think might see some problems with the new ones, or?
I don't know if they'll necessarily see any problems. I think it honestly, the way that I understand it is that it's far more common for you to not take tires on a pit stop than it is to take tires at this track. So, coming off of a heat cycle, they are very used to the way that the tires have worn. So, yeah, I guess I do see your point.
Yeah, and I definitely see that in that final stage. If a green flag pit stop is necessary, I think the majority of this field is probably going to elect to not take tires. I mean, to spend as less time on pit road as you can could be very valuable here as we wait for these guys. I do believe going to be heading down pit road any time now.
Let's see if we can get a hint of our leader's lap time fall offs there. Lap 1, he turned a 2:15.8. 2 was a 2:15.2. Lap 5 was his fastest at 2 minutes 14.5. That proceeded to fall off on lap 9 to a 2:16.7. But again, I think he did encounter a lap car right there. His slowest lap was right after his fastest lap. So it looks like there's a lot of variation and not necessarily anything directly related to tire wear. So his car's handling quite well, I believe, on the long run. It's just whether or not he's willing to put up with potentially 80% wear tires or maybe even 90% wear tires, and whether it's in his interest to go ahead and get more.
Yeah, it could very well be worth his while, or could not be. I mean, like you said, I think a lot of times when it comes to these road courses, you see someone run a fast lap and then a slow lap and then a fast lap and then a slow lap. They kind of do that methodically to kind of keep those tires at a certain percentage. I guess let them kind of cool down a bit. But you got to think too. We watched earlier when we were watching a little bit of Corey Cook. And a lot of the cars out here, you've seen that red glint from those brakes. I mean, that's also something that could play into, it too. When you see those brakes getting so hot like that, that does affect tire wear too, I think.
No, the older cars, at least, I'm not quite sure if we still have it here. They had bead fans, where the tire bead sealed with the wheel, and they used the fan to make sure that the bead wouldn't get too hot and melt the tire and make it to where there's no seal and blow the tire out. So, yeah, the brakes, especially with the way that they do radiate heat and put some of that into the wheel, that'll maybe even heat up the bead. So I'm not sure if that really is simulated in iRacing, but it's certainly a factor inside of real life anyway.
And it does look like Matt DeCiani is going to win the race off pit road. Clayton Hoffman able to beat Josh Schaffner off here. And I think we'll go ahead and take this time to bring in our Stage 1 winner, Matt DeCiani. Matt DeCiani, we got you in the booth, man. How you feeling? Stage 1 winner. Were you feeling confident there, or did you feel like a little nervous when you had Clayton Hoffman really putting some pressure on you?
I wouldn't say I was nervous. I know he's pretty quick, and yeah, he's definitely going to be one of the biggest competitions so far. But yeah, I mean, it's good. You just got to stay in your rhythm and keep the rear tires on it, and yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it seems like that is definitely one of the things that do keep the rear tires on it. But you didn't have a ton of fall off during the run. I mean, did it feel like the handling was going away from you?
I wouldn't. It's hard to tell the fall off because I was stuck behind Josh there for a while, so I really wasn't putting down great lap times. It's really hard to pass you. There's only like a couple zones you can pass in, so I wouldn't say there's a ton of lap time fall off. Maybe like a second and a half, but like it's the heat in the tires, and you just lose grip.
Now, how do you like this racetrack? I mean, are you on the side of this doesn't belong in NASCAR?
Yeah, it's definitely not a cup track. Like it's the sharp corners are tough. I mean, I like the racetrack in general, but yeah, it's probably not a cup track, but it's still pretty fun.
I'm glad you're having fun out there. Who can we shout out to you for you after that stage 1 victory?
Thanks to you guys up in the booth, and then EPI for the setups.
All right, short and sweet and to the point. Love to hear it, and good luck with the rest of your race, Mr. DeCiani.
Thanks.
Short and sweet and to the point. Hopefully that's the way he wants to run his race too.
It's looking like it. Of course, Clayton's putting a little bit of pressure, it looks like, but not enough to really make him sweat, it seems like. Maybe we were looking a little bit too far into it. He seemed to be the one putting the pressure, not getting the one over pressure.
Yeah, and with DeCiani in front of Clayton, and Clayton was made that mistake, fell back so much there, back behind to Josh Schaffner. I mean, will he be dwelling on mistakes like that? That's one thing about a road course. If you use any of your thought processes, or if you're not focused on what's going on the racetrack or the racing surface itself, and you dwell on mistakes you made in the past, I mean, you literally have to have 100% of your brain function going to this track right now.
We haven't really seen it be the case yet. But some of these, especially on the inside and the S's, there's turtles that are colored yellow, and I don't know if you're familiar with the security barriers that they'll put on some roads, especially like around government sites up in the Capitol, especially. They'll lift out of the road, and if you run into them, it'll completely stop you, especially if a truck's coming. That's what they're meant to do. But those turtles that are yellow, they will damage the front end of your car, and you will pay the price for it. Cutting the inside of some of these turns. If one of those turtles are there, it can ruin your night. So some of these mistakes, it's not that you're dwelling on them, it's that you are fearful to repeat it, because if it's similar, just in a wrong spot, it can be the end of your night.
Yeah, it really can. And still waiting on the pace car lights to come out, though. Everybody has completed their pit stops. I do believe everybody probably took a fresh set of tires. One good thing about this, the caution lap, or a good thing for us, I should say, not a good thing for these guys. I'm sure they would prefer if the caution laps actually counted. That way they didn't have to do it for so long. Just considering, I mean, I think by the end of this race, these guys are going to be, their stamina is going to be drained. The endurance, I would be just a sweating mess if I had to turn left and right so many times.
Normally, you see it where everybody's right arm is hurting because that's the arm pushing the wheel in. But here, you're pushing left, you're pushing right, you're using both, you're using your whole body in some cases. Feet, especially with the detail inside of the feet, your foot can start cramping up really bad, especially with the throttle control that you got going on. So, some of the interesting parts will be, I don't know whether or not they're doing it, but some guys will 2-foot their pedals. Other guys will just kind of use one and then keep their left foot for their clutch, like a traditional you would on the road, right? So I've a lot of time heard here on road courses they'll still be using their 2 feet, but at a short track they'd be using their left foot for their brake. Here they're using their right foot for their brake, left foot for their clutch, like you would a traditional place. But yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Curious to see, how these guys are going to handle the rest of it. I think a lot of these guys probably haven't used some of the muscles they're using. Like you said, you have to use the whole body. I mean, just like if like using your left hand for something. Usually your left hand's probably weaker than your right, depending on which hand's dominant. Well, this having to turn both left and right, and use the brake and stuff like that. I mean, both feet are going to be hurting, both arms are going to be hurting, and tell you what though, you get quite the workout. I'd say that you might be able to get ripped by doing 100 laps here.
So crank your force feedback up to 100 and get you a nice direct drive wheel, and you'll be jacked coming out of this race.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to fight nobody that as a road course racer.
Maybe after a race, then they couldn't tucker.
They're all wore out. Yeah. But the pace car lights are out, soon to be going back green here. Stage 1 has been completed. We are now getting ready to start Stage 2. We saw Matt DeCiani bring home the Stage 1 victory. The car been looking really quick here, but like you said, some of his main competition is going to be Clayton Hoffman. Could it maybe Josh Schaffner maybe made some car adjustments and maybe even adjust his driving style? I mean, tell us about setups when it comes to this racetrack. How important do you think setups are?
Handling is more important than speed whenever it comes down to a road course in most cases. So setups are more, I would argue, more driver oriented than it would be at an oval. Some guys, I mean, it's not really even, some guys will like it looser or tighter here or there. It's all about just depending on the turn. Like, you can't set up a road course car for one specific one, but with these next gen cars, you've got rear anti-roll bars, front anti-roll bars, and then you've got your usual springs, and the springs are always symmetrical. Anti-roll bars it's really very much like a GT car or something you'd see in that type of series, IMSA, whenever it comes to these road races.
Yeah, speaking of which, very excited to see how this car handles Le Mans. That's going to be interesting. Some interesting news, though. I mean, that is pretty cool that, I really am curious to see how these cars do against a GT3 or something like that.
Well, thankfully, just because I don't know if we want it compared, they're in Garage 56, so they're not really racing against anybody. They're racing for bragging rights just to see how well they can do. But I think the most interesting part that's going to come out of Le Mans is, I know that whenever the next gen was being developed, it was already in discussion about doing something like a electronic recovery system where you're going to have a little bit of the kinetic energy of the car is going to feed into a battery. That way, whenever you're coming off of a turn, whenever the motor is the least efficient, you can use some of the electricity and use an electric motor to help push the car and get more power off. I believe I've heard that they're going to include one of those in the Le Mans car, maybe as a prototype and a trial run for potentially including them at the road races whenever NASCAR goes to them in real life. I don't know if they'd be too popular or frequently used for the extra weight in side of an oval, because the drive off isn't really a question, but on a road course, I think it would be very valuable. And I think that depending on how they do at Le Mans, it's going to have implications for what we see whenever we come back here or to tracks like this.
Well, the green flag is out. You see Clayton Hoffman really getting those tires heated up, and he's alongside the leader, Matt DeCiani. I'm curious, watching Corey Cook. I mean, I know he was fast enough to get up to second early in that first stage, fell back a lot. Now has a chance to really start to battle again. Also, Mark Pageant has a good chance here to get into this fight here.
I mean, I think we're seeing that a lot of the drivers have figured out the track. They're at least a little bit more comfortable here. On the first green flag drop, we had a little bit of a hiccup coming into turn 1. There was a big stack up going in. Here, we kind of got smooth. The field's pretty close together comparatively, right?
Yeah, they really are. I mean, we saw a huge stack up earlier that really put a lot of guys, several seconds behind. And we're seeing a lot more guys actually up here and more fighting with one another. There's Clayton Hoffman right there on the back of Matt DeCiani trying to make something happen. I mean, I think that the key here for him, if Clayton Hoffman wants to win this stage or the race, he's got to get in front of Matt DeCiani early here.
And we can see him putting the pressure on. A big part of this stage especially is the last stage we saw that at the very end, the 4th place was 26 seconds back from Matt DeCiani. That was already started on the very first lap. Here we're seeing Mark Pageant 4th, only 2 seconds back, and we're almost a full lap into the stage. So we could see somebody, maybe, I mean, of course, Corey Cook, he already demonstrated his ability to work through the field at the very beginning, but now he may have a little bit more trouble doing it with all the cars being a little bit more confident and competent and actually being able to hold their line a little bit better and not have the stack ups or spin outs that we saw earlier.
Yeah, for sure. We see Matthew McMeekin working his way up to the 9th place. We also saw Mark Sanchez have some problems just a little bit earlier. He fell back to 12th position, but Matthew McMeekin looking pretty quick right now. Oh, getting close. Robert Pattengale going to challenge here. What a good pass there from Pattengale.
Great pass. That's a good opportunity. That turn right there is really easy to overslow for it.
And you see Matthew McMeekin really locking those tires up. See Wayne Grossi and Randy Drumhiller right now duking it out for that 6th position. Randy Drumhiller has a pretty good line going into turn 1 here. And it looks like he is going to be able to make that pass. You see Greg Wachinski. Wachinski right now is actually still 5 laps down, but looking quick. I mean, I hate that he went, had that big problem to where we saw him flip over earlier in this race. Still showing some good speed.
I think a good, important part of this stage is turning out to be Josh Offner's speed, especially on that first lap. He's currently 2 seconds back from Matt DeCiani. He started in the lead, I believe, at the beginning of the very first stage, and now he's kind of dropped off almost immediately at the very beginning. This may be either telling that he's worried about how his car was handling in the long run and he's taking a little bit easier here at the beginning, or even that...
Oh, Kenny Powell around. He's sideways on the racing surface. And he's going to fall all the way back to 11th place. But no, I think Josh Schaffner, the way he always, he's just kind of a methodical, very consistent type of driver. And let's see exactly how this happened. Yeah, he just that little change in, and the elevation there here at COTA really caused the problem there for Kenny, I think. But like I said, Josh is really really consistent. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Matt DeCiani, Clayton Hoffman battling up front, and maybe they take each other out, and Josh would be like, hey, this is good.
Very well could be. I mean, an important part of it, especially here, I don't know. So downforce is exponential with speed. So faster you go, more downforce you have. So once we get into some of these slower turns, we have less downforce generally. But whenever you're stuck up right behind somebody, just like Clayton Hoffman and Matt DeCiani are right now, Clayton doesn't have as much air on his nose as he probably maybe even wants, but the way it's looking, the way he's close up behind, and I know it doesn't look that like they're bump drafting, of course, but that little bit of air and the fact that they're so close together is making it to where Clayton doesn't have quite the turn in that he probably wishes he did.
So the big run, he's trying to take him on the high side, just not able to get there. But you can see that's one of the places where you probably could line up a pass. You see that long straightaway. You were just talking about it. That's going to allow Clayton, whenever he's behind him, to build up that momentum, but it's not going to help him when it comes to the actual corner itself. That's why I think, the point you're trying to make there is, even at the road, road courses, you think, downforce doesn't mean that much, especially when these guys are going through all these slow corners. Side by side for the lead. Looks like DeCiani going to be able to hold him off, but Clayton Hoffman has the advantage into this corner. And he's riding right along on the curbing. And he makes the pass. Clayton Hoffman, our leader.
That turn back there, the inside of the on the inside, there's a really sharp elevation change where the track goes up and then it instantly starts to go back down. But then the inside, right along the curbing, has a little bit of a pothole in it. If you go over that pothole, it can really upset the car very bad, especially if you don't have a little bit stiffer of a setup. So it could have been that either Matt realized that, gave it up just in case, or even just realized, okay, it's maybe not worth fighting side by side this early in the stage, and we'll maybe wait 1 or 2 more laps before I go back and challenge it, let Clayton have the air on his nose instead.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the right call. I mean, I think that once Clayton gets this clean air, he's going to be pretty much unstoppable. I mean, we saw him, right there behind DeCiani that whole time. I'm able to stick right there with him. But then again, like we discussed earlier, with him not having any really one to judge on, he slow down a bit, maybe take a corner the wrong way. Because, you got to think, him being behind DeCiani keeps him from really overusing his equipment. But now that he's in, the lead here, he can really try to, put the power down and try to get these really good runs. But, it could end up where, you get sideways or something like that.
Well, Matt was in front of him, and he was so close behind Matt that the downforce was significantly lower. So here out front, it doesn't look like he's having too much of a problem with it. It may even handle better, but it's going to change the handling on the car, and he's going to have to adapt to that. And whether or not it's a good change or a bad change is up to him and his car, but it's looking like it's pretty okay. Could be even be that Matt is kind of afraid to get that close behind somebody just because he doesn't want to run the risk of a bad braking zone or that different braking zone, or even wants to keep the air on his nose and make sure that he's got it for these S's and everything of that nature.
Yeah, you're definitely starting to see a little bit of a gap start to form here as Clayton Hoffman's last lap was over a second faster than Matt DeCiani. So I think that 92 is going to be looking real strong here. It's going to be hard to take this lead from him. And if I was Matt DeCiani, I would be trying to watch Clayton as best I could to see exactly what he's doing and try to use that, apply that to this last stage, as we don't have long really left to go in this one here. It's about, I think, verging on 5 laps remaining.
The aerial view never quite gives the best impression of how long this straight right here really feels inside of the car. I've always noticed that it's coming into this back straightaway or the long back stretch, it's a really long turn. Here, coming into these, there's a double apex coming up. Depending on what gear you're running in your rear end ratio, a lot of the time you'll probably see yourself from coming off of the back straightaway into that first little left-hand turn, you'll see yourself in the same gear up until coming right out of this turn onto this long carousel is what I call it. I believe they're counted as turns 14 and 15, technically 2 turns, but in most cases people treat it as one long one. This turn that we're coming up on right here, this is probably the easiest turn to get wrong. You can really overslow for it. You can kind of sling your car through it and get ready for this long drop here, but this turn, it's easy to run off if you don't take care of it. And even if you do take care of it and you don't run off the track on the opposite end, if you use your throttle to carry yourself out of the turn, it's really easy to hit that inside wall.
And definitely you don't want to do that, hit any inside wall.
Oh, yeah.
We're starting to see a little bit of a battle starting to form. I think Mark Paget and Corey Cook. They're pretty right up on top of one another. I do believe this could be something that could see a change of position. You see Corey Cook chasing that carrot on a stick, trying to catch up here to Pageant. But they have very similar lap times. Corey Cook only about a 10th quicker every lap. And I think it all comes down to, I think Paget's better in certain portions of the racetrack.
Oh, it's set up, right? The S's are very different than the middle section, and then once you get to the double apex and the carousel, that section is probably closer to the carousel than it is the first and the second and fourth sections. So depending on how your car's set up, it's going to handle differently, and your driving style and your ability to memorize it and know exactly what line you need to take.
Just been so impressed with the likes of like Randy Drumhiller, Wayne Grossi. I mean, might not be running in the top 5, but this is still that type of, these guys are used to running on ovals. I mean, when you come to a road course like this, and I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, just considering it really, when you talk about memorizing the actual racetrack, one corner sets up another. I mean, the whole racetrack, I mean, there's an art form to figuring out the ultimate line going throughout this racetrack, and a lot of respect to the guys that even can build a setup for a road course. I know you alluded to it earlier about how you can't really set up a car for just one corner. I mean, you have to set up a car for every single corner, and that's quite a tricky thing. I mean, you think setting up a car for Darlington's hard, try to set up a car for COTA.
I mean, personally, not to detract from the wonderful road course setup builders that we have out here, but I feel that the generalization that is required to build a road car makes it at least a bit easier, and especially in the way that many road courses, since in one track you can have such a variety of turns, every road course is in a way the same. It's going to have some of the same elements. It's just expressed in a different way. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's harder because all the turns are different. I think that it may just be you don't have to have the detail that would otherwise be required.
And I think, like you said too, it kind of applies to the driver too. It's kind of, you would probably customize that setup for each driver, saying that I want it to be, to be able to have better exit speed or something like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just because I don't really know anything about setups myself, so it's like, it kind of blows my mind that you're able to even to start trying to build a setup for a road course. It's like, where do you start? I mean,
it's spring package. I guess. I mean, in most cases, it's all dependent on the style you do it. But there's some people who do their tires first, or some people who do their springs first, or all of the sort, right? But generally here, if you know that you're wanting your front end to kind of be more rigid and your rear end to be able to compress down in the straightaways, you'll go stiffer front, softer rear, and then just make the setup around that idea and then find the exact numbers that you want. I think that's kind of been the most popular form I've personally seen this week of stiff front, soft rear. It's just how stiff and how soft is really the question. And then you use your anti-roll bars to really help with the compliance on the compliance generally around the track on the two tires.
Welcome to Josh Ward's TED Talk, everybody.
All your anti-roll bars are doing is, because when you're turning left, your left front has less of the load, and your anti-roll bar is going to help hold that inside tire down because it doesn't have as much of the load, and that's part of the idea behind it, of keeping things sealed off to give you the best aerodynamic performance while also giving it the variability and the conformability necessary to get around the track.
I'll take your word for it. But we've been watching a little bit on board here with Corey Cook as he's trying his hardest to catch up to Mark Padgett. One thing, like you kind of mentioned before, the closer and closer that these guys get to one another, the harder it is going to, for handling for sure. And I think we see that a lot. But now Corey Cook really starting to put some pressure on Mark Padgett. Can he get this done? Like they said, like we talked to Matt Diciani earlier, there's only a couple zones you can really make that pass happen. I mean, what are those zones? I mean, when can you try to make something happen even in a non-passing zone?
I don't have the confidence as a driver on this track to really give you a good say. Like, it's depending on how good you are compared to the guy that you're passing. I'd probably say if you're significantly more talented, you can get it done wherever you want. But some of these other guys, I think, definitely turn one coming into the carousel. If you can maintain that outside line, that's going to give you the inside coming into the carousel, and that'll kind of give you an advantage. The guy on the inside going through the first carousel into the S's will probably have a better run coming into the S's, but given that you kind of want to hold a specific speed going through depending on your setup, that run might be wasted if you end up having to get to his rear end before you finally get a chance to get into it, right? So I'd say turn one for sure. Probably coming onto the back straightaway out of that hairpin is another one. And maybe into this carousel coming turn 19 right before the then into 20. This turn I believe we're in right now would be while we're riding on with Corey Cook would be probably the other big passing opportunity.
I'll tell you what, you don't mess with Texas. This racetrack here, I mean, man, the only place I think they could build a racetrack like this is in Texas.
Well, it follows the FIA standard for a Grand Prix circuit. It's meant to be an F1 track, and to be able to hold an F1 race, it has to have certain elements, and to my understanding, the architect of it made it specifically in adherence to those tracks because the owners and the developers specifically wanted to have an F1 race in America, in Austin, Texas. So, I don't necessarily think that while it's of course unique because it is America's Grand Prix circuit, or the United States' Grand Prix circuit, I should say, because there are other countries in North and South America. I think the architect of this track also did Bahrain, the Turkish road course that the F1 series goes to. He's a motocross driver, if I'm not mistaken, or a former motocross champion.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have heard that, the guy that did design this one, definitely has his hands in a ton of other, really famous racetracks. One thing I wanted to discuss is, when we first started this broadcast, we were looking at the temperatures in the session. It was about 116 degrees. It's cooled down quite a bit. It's now to about 106. So I think this could be helping these guys out with a lot of the grip. I mean, we see, I know a lot of the racing conditions this week and the officials, we've seen guys even turn, 2-minute, 12-second laps. Right now these guys hitting about 215, 214, probably the fastest I think we've seen probably from Clayton Hoffman. But kind of surprising that, we're not seeing as high of a, or low of a lap time, because we know Clayton Hoffman, he's one of the fastest guys, in a lot of ways, one of the top drivers in iRacing in a lot of ways. And surprised we're not seeing quicker lap times from these guys. You think that's the temperature that's really leading to that?
I don't think really 106 would be too high, but I think that the fuel load might have some implications. Of course, these guys are good enough to where they're going to adapt and overcome to differences like that, where you have the different fuel load. And even then, I think that at 75% fuel, you would probably expect the lap times to be lower because the amount of weight in the car has a lot to do with the acceleration and the ability to really get out of the turn. And at an oval, that's not necessarily as big of a deal as you would have here at a road course where you've got such tight turns and you're really trying to get it up to speed, especially coming in from the hairpins or the sharp 90-degree turn coming onto the front straightaway, and then that sharp hairpin on the back. There's a lot of time to be gained there, and accelerating out of that, yeah.
Speaking of the front stretch, Kenny Powell now crossing the line. It is official. Clayton Hoffman, your Stage 2 winner. Man, 2 different stage winners on the night. What a job there. Clayton Hoffman, your Stage 2 winner. Matt DeCiani going to be finishing in second here. Josh Schaffner in third. Mark Paget in fourth. Corey Cook fifth. Randy Drumhiller in sixth. Wayne Grossi in seventh. Eighth place going to be Robert Pattengale. Ninth place, Matthew McMeekin. And 10th place, Kenny Powell. That is the points paying position here for Stage 2. And with that, I think we'll take a quick step away and pay our commercial or our sponsors a little bit of attention here.
ButtKicker. Feel what you've been missing. Get yours today at TheButtKicker.com and be sure to use our 20% discount promo code ISCA20.
Get the part you need from the comfort of your garage. Order online or via our mobile app with advanced same day. Get same day pickup, same day curbside, or same day delivery. Advance your auto. Advance Auto Parts.
And welcome back. What a stage that was. Stage 2 now complete. Now we go on to the real race. The race where we're going to have, not too many laps to go to the end of this thing. If the fuel run is 14 laps, and I do believe, like you said earlier, probably going to be 16, 17 laps run to the end, that would require a pit stop. So I think this is when we're going to see, really the big guns come out, especially when it comes to strategy. Like, when do you come down? Do you try to split it in half? Do you, try to go as early as you can to maybe put, not spend as much time down pit road? You already mentioned that tires could be something that you just don't take.
I highly doubt anybody takes tires this time around with only 3 laps of gas. I think they're missing. So it's really one of those things of I don't know if it matters when I come down pit road. I guess getting up to speed and whether or not I'm comfortable getting back onto the gas, because we don't have full course cautions. If somebody spins out, it's not gonna completely reset the field. You're gonna keep on going. So it's not a gamble of do I stay out in case the caution comes out? Do I go in and potentially have to take that lucky dog? No, it's just I come in whenever I'm ready to come in. I really doubt that we'll see anybody take tires under this green flag stop.
Yeah, under this yellow flag stop, though, I do believe we probably will see some guys take tires for sure. And once they get down pit road, we'll definitely bring in our Stage 2 winner, Clayton Hoffman, hopefully if he's available.
Just a correction, I think earlier I said motocross. I meant MotoGP. He is a former MotoGP champion, not a motocross. That wouldn't really be particularly relevant to a track like this, I don't believe so.
I mean, that's not a big problem. I mean, you said he was he's a MotoGP, which is that's some crazy racing right there. I mean,
oh yeah.
Have they ever raced here? I mean, I'm curious.
I believe. Let me check my fact sheet, and I know that Australian supercars have. MotoGP has raced here. They raced here from 2013 to 2019, and then from 2021 onward. So they should be coming back here themselves.
Definitely interesting, man. That MotoGP is some exciting racing. I mean, I've always loved that. I mean, I used to have a you know, one of those super bikes, 1000cc super bikes. But I tell you what, I'm so glad I don't have it anymore, because I would go really quick on that thing, and then I'll tell you what, I think someone was looking out for me. So there was plenty of times I probably could have got very seriously injured. But man, those I love motorcycles and love watching that kind of stuff, and you know, just love motorsports in general, and just love to see these guys try to, you know, rise to the challenge here of this road course. And you know, I don't know, man, when you put your knee down on the actual racetrack, though, that's pretty crazy.
Sounds like to me it's about like a boat. The happiest days when you get it, and the happiest days when you get rid of it. So,
well, there goes everybody should be filing down pit road right now. Clayton Hoffman going to be leading them there, and this is going to be an important stop right here. Even though it is not a green flag stop, if you bobble or make a, you know, miss your box it could really affect the rest of this race. But what's going to be even more of an important stop, though, is probably going to be later on whenever we do see that green flag stop. I mean, you know, I think, you know, with this track, of course, you want to practice actually racing. But you also want to, as a team, you know, I would even, you know, want to maybe schedule some time, you know, maybe a good even hour of us just practicing getting on pit road. I mean, because that is such an important part of this. I mean, you speed, unsafe pit entry or exit or anything like that, it could absolutely destroy your race, considering there's not going to be any more cautions after this. If you get a 40-second hold, that could just be terrible.
oh, my least favorite part about this track is the way that the pit road exit going into turn 1. I always arc it out really wide coming off of pit road before I get down into turn 1, because if you're not really prepared for it, you're taking such a sharp entry into it. None of these guys really had problems with it. They don't look like they kind of just held it straight and took the turn super slow. But if you try to take it at any kind of speed coming out of pit road, you can overshoot that turn really easily. Such a tight
100%.
entry into it.
And there's walls there too. You know, could cause some problems for you. Luckily, we haven't seen a ton of damage, you know, trading back and forth between a lot of the guys out here on the racetrack. You know, we have seen some problems in the early stage, but I think you're right. I think this is going to be even some more confidence we're going to see from a lot of these drivers. You know, they've had a lot of time to really experiment, to figure out what their car is doing, and like you said, make a personal adjustment for, you know, for each driver, and also adjustment to the way you're driving this racetrack. You know, this is I mean, I think racing is a learning experience when it comes to when you got these stages and things like that. You really want to just always be on the lookout for, you see how that guy, oh, how's he able to make it through that corner? I need to try to figure that out. But this is the stage where the experiments stop. This is where whatever you've learned up until this point, this is what you're going to use. Because if you start experimenting during this part of the race, it could bite you. At least earlier in the stages, you had that buffer to where you can get that caution to come out. You can get it to where you can catch back up to the field. This is not going to be that case. This is the last caution we are going to see tonight. And I think we'll go ahead and bring up our Stage 2 winner, Clayton Hoppin. Do we have him?
I'm giving.
And we have him in the booth. Josh, why don't you go ahead and interview Mr. Clayton Hoffman?
How you doing, Clayton?
Doing pretty good. How are you guys doing?
I believe we watching a fantastic race. You looking really good up front. What you got? Did you make any adjustments? How was the car feeling that last run?
Yeah, I felt better in the first run. I think the first run I was doing a couple things wrong. A little bit too much wheel when I was letting off the brake. I overheated my rears. I had a little spin there in stage 1, but second stage is a lot smoother. Not really much I can adjust on the car on the road course. Seems like either way I go with my offsets, I'm gonna get looser. So I just kind of leaving it for now.
So I noticed in that first stage, and especially at the beginning of that second stage, you were really tucked up behind Matt Diciani. Once you got into clean air, did it really affect the car too much? Did you notice anything change too?
Yeah, car is a bit tighter. When I'm right behind him, my car just seems to lose rear grip. I guess with that diffuser, it kind of changes how dirty it works, and I'm still looser even if there's no one behind me. If there's someone behind me, I'd have been extremely loose, but thankfully it was just the one in front.
Well, you think you're going to have any more pressure coming from behind you this next stage? I expect a little bit more aggression coming from the back of the field.
Yeah, we'll see. Trying to figure out fuel mileage right now. It's going to be really close whether or not you can make it the whole distance or not. I haven't done any fuel mileage tests. So, yeah, it'll probably be pretty aggressive here at the start with fresh tires. But it's just going to come down to, I think, who makes the least amount of mistakes.
Well, is there anybody you wanted to shout out for your Stage 2 win?
Yeah, shout out to Legacy Esports, Champion, Curb, or Blaster, I can't remember all the other sponsors, but thanks to everyone over there. Shout out to Reaper Speed Labs, Rental Fox, Vicente, working on the set they released this week. Yeah, thanks to you guys for broadcasting this. I think it's been a pretty good show for the most part. Had some good battles there, starting back in 10th.
You got anything for him, Brian, before we let him go?
I think that's it. Good luck to you, Mr. Clayton Hoffman.
Thank you.
That is your Stage 2 winner, Clayton Hoffman. And looking at just what saw some last-minute takers on pit road there, could that be a valid strategy? Getting that little one extra lap of gas could really be important. As the pace car lights are out.
It sounds to me like Clayton was expecting it might be possible. It might not be. If anybody's able to save it, that might be a benefit of being one of these slower guys. You might not be burning as much gas if it's closer than we think it is, because that 14-lap fuel window is only an estimate. It could be 1 or 2 laps longer, and given that I think this might be a 17-lap stage, or I think it may be 16 looking at it, 1 or 2 laps, if you're even maybe running a 230, that could be some extra time on pit road.
Could be. It could be. It could be worth just to save it. You're talking about you're going to see a lot of aggression. Maybe some guys won't even try to pit at all. But how easy is it to save fuel at a track like this? Got to be difficult.
It's all about how hard you get onto the throttle coming out of the turns. I'm expecting, or even if you weren't to really worry too much about accelerating out and even use your front tires a little bit more, maybe not brake as hard and keep the car rolling, it may end up saving you a little bit more gas. I would assume that the slower you are, the less gas you spend. So we'll see how it goes.
I think that, I don't know though. We talked about it. Our figures are 14 laps on a fuel run. If this is a 16-lap run or 17-lap run to the end, I don't think it's possible to save that much. I mean, because you got to think these guys are turning, over 2-minute lap times. This is a 3.4 mile racetrack. How do you save that much? Like, that is quite a challenge. That's probably 10% of the run is those 2 laps. I mean,
it's not about giving it up in one lap. It's about giving it up in every lap. If some of these guys are running 2:15s, you might see them wait a little bit longer before they ever even get off the throttle. Maybe let it roll a little bit more, and that could be enough to save that little bit of gas. It's not like we're running 9,000 RPM or 7,000 to 8,000 RPM for 60 laps straight at full throttle. It's more we're running a little bit. We're not running as high RPM at such constant rates. So who knows?
yeah, I mean, there's some different schools of thought on that. When it comes to those tracks where you're running flat out. I think you burn more fuel too, though, when you're getting back, trying to get the acceleration and trying to get back up to speed.
No, that's when the motors is least efficient at the lower RPMs, from my understanding of it. So it's gonna be a little bit more, burn a little bit more whenever we're slowing down so much and then having to come back out of it, and especially going through all of your gears. So you're probably spending a little bit more gas on this track than you would at, say, Talladega, of course, but I still think that you have more fuel-saving opportunities than you would at, say, a regular oval. So while the 2-minute lap times are longer, I do think that we could see somebody make it.
Yeah, I mean, it could, like you said, one of those slower guys would be like, I could do this.
Hey, risk it. If you're running at the back of the field and you're running slow lap times, you're not doing as much as everybody else, risk it.
Yeah, what's the loss here? I mean,
Right.
Risk it all. Scared money don't make money. But here comes the green flag. Clayton Hoffman going to be in control of the field. Should be gassing it up and through the gears. And there he goes. A little bit of an early start there from Clayton. He's able to, I do believe, get clear of Josh Schaffner there. And right now, side by side, Mark Pageant and Matt DeCiani. DeCiani lost that position on pit road, now challenging Schaffner. I'm telling you what, Schaffner's been so good on pit road.
I'm surprised that Josh Schaffner gave that up right there. I guess it makes sense coming into this next S. We're going to turn left. But it looks like everybody's done and got single filed out pretty quickly, coming right out of turn 1 at least.
I think they're saving fuel already. I mean, you see the gap up to Clayton. I mean, they're not even trying to catch him right now.
If they save too much, right? Like you've got 16 laps, 2 seconds a lap. That's 32 seconds. Depending on how long the pit stop is, of course, it's going to probably be at least a minute on pit road. So you're going to have to be getting a good little bit of a gap. And 2 seconds may not be enough, but depending on the speed differential between some of these guys saving gas and the others that are really pushing it, it's going to really tell who's able to save and who's not, or whether or not the pit's going to be worth it.
Randy Drumhiller making his first appearance up in the top 5 right now. That 44 has been looking strong all day long. He's one of those guys that, not necessarily the fastest, might be one of those guys that could try to make it on fuel here. As we see everybody right kind of up on top of each other. You see, some locking it up there from Randy Drumhiller, Matthew McMeekin.
We had 3 or 4 cars go into the runoff right out of that turn 20, I believe that is.
I think that was a hit on Matthew McMeekin, too. You look, more problems. Corey Cook and him. He gets spun right around. Kenny Powell stopped on the racetrack because of this. Oh, yeah, look at that. Matthew McMeekin missing his front end now. Man, that was a huge hit from him. Just having a terrible race here tonight. That car has seen better days.
Corey Cook, he got him a good little bit of right side damage there. And like we were talking about, this is a road course. You're turning left and right. Whenever you've got isolated damage, especially just on your right side, that's going to change the way that the car handles in both left and right turns. So he's going to have probably a good bias between which of the 2 turns is handling better. Shoot, both ways may handle poorly. It's just he may be loose one way, tight the other, right?
It could even help him in some regards, but I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if it's gonna. I mean, you see that he's got front end damage. Could that affect his heating too? You know, might have heating issues with the engine depending on what gear he's running.
I wouldn't be too worried about that. We're not running any tape on these cars. I've not really seen too many situations where the cars have overheated. It's not impossible, of course, but it is iRacing, and we see right there he hangs that wide. That may just be his driving style, and I may not be just familiar with the way that he does that, but that was a really good wide arc, bringing him out to the outside of that turn, letting him have a closer and sharper carry, more speed through that little hairpin 90-degree left turn. It does look like he's lost a little bit of time to the 7 right in front of him, but it just shows you the difference of maybe not capability, but the way that taking these turns can be.
Well, Kenny Powell
Extremely
around. He's in the grass. Big problems from him as DeCiani comes, or not DeCiani, Matthew McMeekin comes up and gets around him. Man, just everybody having a lot of mistakes here right now. But looking back towards the front of the field, you see Clayton Hoppin right now turning 2 minutes 16.579, and you see DeCiani, he's turning like 4 seconds slower than that. I mean, I am a betting man. If I was a betting man, I'd say they're saving. Those guys behind Clayton are saving right now.
But again, everybody behind Clayton is gambling. Can they make it for 1 and 2 at 4 seconds lap difference? 4 seconds a lap difference. That's what, a minute and 4. So over the course of 16 laps. So if Clayton has to take an extra minute on pit road, he still has lost nothing if they are giving up this much time. And I see Matt really closes that delta down, so he's now about 2.1 back. I think we might have saw Clayton get a little bit loose. Yep, he was on the outside of turn 1. That's a big mistake that could, I mean, I don't think anybody's close enough really to capitalize on it, but it has implications for any chance that he wanted to get himself a big enough gap for everybody behind him that's potentially saving.
And could that be as a result of the track cooling down? Looking at it right now, 102 degrees on the racing surface. Could that have something to do with it?
Always can. In my experience on ovals, lower track temp is going to make you a little bit looser on entry, a little bit tighter on exit, and hot track's going to do the opposite. And I would assume that on a road course, it's pretty much the same situation because you've just got more grip with a cooler track. So I very well could be, may not just be familiar with it, it may just be catching him off guard, and as the track gets cooler and as things change, it of course could heat up. I'm not quite sure what our active NSIM time is. It's looking like we are currently at 4:12 p.m. race time, so as the race progresses, it's more than likely going to cool down. I don't think we'll see a situation where it's going to fluctuate too much, but it could, for any of these guys that are more used to a cooler track temperature, be to their advantage.
For sure. I mean, even in the interview when I know you were talking to Clayton Hoffman there, you know, he mentioned that he started out this race tight. So, you know, could it be something to where as this race is, you know, the track is cooling down, he's starting to loosen that car up a little bit, just not used to it?
It very well could be. I think most of what he was referring to was the air whenever he was behind another car and whether or not the rear diffuser was engaged. But that can also go into things where if you're heating up your rear tires a lot more, that's going to increase the tire pressure because hotter air expands, and hotter tires are going to be bigger around and increase the ride height of the car, and that can kind of change the rake angle of the setup and then make you either looser or tighter depending. And up to debate right now on whether or not the diffuser makes it where less rake is better or more rake is better, but it's going to change the car. And the O2, he's similarly seeing a little bit of issue. I don't know if he was involved in one of those accidents earlier in the stage, but it's looking like some of these guys are starting to struggle a lot more than they were in that second stage.
They really are. I mean, we saw that Mark Padgett was really starting to close in on Josh Schaffner, not able to get there any longer. I'm looking at his car. I don't see any damage really on it. I think that might have just been a little bit of a handling issue. You know, we talked about it earlier. You know, you almost got to drive like you got a carton of eggs underneath that gas pedal, and definitely seeming like that's what's happening right now. We just now pretty much entered the fuel window. So I'm curious, are we going to have any takers here? What is going to be the strategy? Kind of up in the air here. But I'm telling you what, Josh, with all the information you've been throwing at our audience out here, I think you should write a book.
I take everything I say with a grain of salt because, shoot, just to my knowledge, not to the correct knowledge. So I could be saying something completely wrong, but it's accurate to my best knowledge.
Well, don't worry. If you're saying stuff wrong, I'm always saying stuff wrong because, I mean, I'm always calling it wrong. What a race we've had.